I'm William Nozek, and in this module, I'm going to talk about email design. What is email design? The process of strategically creating an email that appeals to the target audience. You know how important branding is. You know how important the look is. You've seen an email that you're like, gosh, that's exactly what I want to hear about, but this design's turning me off, and then you just don't follow through with it. Design is super important. The way something looks visually is just as important as the content that it contains. If you think about food, the way food smells, tastes, and looks matters. So aesthetic matters for email design. High quality email design can capture the attention of the recipients, and great email design can help keep the reader engaged. Designing an email, here are the things we need to think about. The subject line, the pre-headers, the colors, the imagery, buttons, personalization, and the key message. So the subject line. Email campaigns will have a higher open rate, ensuring more eyes are on the copy by the subject line. A lot of people use techniques on this, like they try to use statistics, or they try to use, words that create fear or anxiety or scarcity. Whatever you do, make sure you understand if it works with your target market. We don't want to think of a one-size-fits-all subject line. It really matters on what industry you're in, why the reason is you're creating an email campaign, whether it's just kind of stale and quantitative, like here's what this is about, or if it's got some qualitative feels to it, like it's just got more emotion embedded in it. Think of the subject line as something that's going to help people to click that open and see what's beyond that. Around 40% of email recipients open emails based on the subject line. Super important. You're not going to get the subject line correct out of the gate. This is actually going to be something that you're going to pay attention to, and you'll see what your subject lines in time, which ones get the most open rates, kind of is going to give you a vibe on what that target audience wants to see. Also, pre-headers, super important. So it's kind of like when you're previewing that email, this is what you see. It's like a meta description for, when you're searching in Google and you're looking at the SERPs and you see that meta description right under that header line. It's like a pre-header meta description. Meta description on a website and for search engines doesn't have anything to do with SEO. It has everything to do with open rates. So people may read that and decide, oh, that's what I need. Same thing here with a pre-header and an email. The subscriber will have a better idea of what the email is about. That's really, it has everything to do with helping with the open rate. So make sure those are really good. And then that's something you're going to need to test over time. You certainly don't want any spelling errors, misspellings. You want to speak how is written in the document. You want to stay really close on those things and really match up against the end user. Colors. So everything we do has to match the brand guide. If the brand doesn't have a brand guide, then you don't know what you're doing. So first and foremost, it starts with that logo, that mark, and also the monogram. Once we get that logo and it's simple and it's clean, it's recognizable, and we can brand around it, then we build a brand guide, right? The brand guide is going to show us how that logo can be used on top of images, what colors it can be used on, and how it can be used and what colors are associated with, what the primary, secondary, maybe even the tertiary colors are that can be used whenever we're making something that's forward-facing and even internal with the brand. And we want to keep that within the brand guide. So you've got your color guide, you've got your typography. We want to make sure that everything is in our typography. We've got a guide, and we say, headers can be in these fonts, body text can be in these fonts, and we don't ever get outside of that. And sometimes those fonts aren't accessible on certain things, and so we try to find fonts that are really similar. That can be the case. That's why choosing an easy, accessible font is super important. And a legible one, right? We don't want to use like this cursive font for our logo. That's like one of the worst things we can do. And we don't want to use cursive for headers, even though it might look cool stylized. We want easy to use within the brand guide, colors, fonts, typography, that all, whenever we're making an email, the design we want it to line up with the brand guide. So the email will look professional, aesthetically pleasing. People like that, they're gravitated towards it. You can have worse content that's beautiful and it's more likely probably to get digested versus really good content that's ugly. I just say really great content that's packaged really well. If content's king, I think packaging is queen. So the imagery, we want to use images that don't make the emails inaccessible. We certainly want to have photos in there that accent the content, make sense with the content. We want to follow some rules. Similar to a website, we wouldn't want to put an image on a web page that's over 100 KB. There are some exceptions to that rule, obviously, but that's kind of like the general rule of thumb is keep it as small as possible. And then if the viewport of a laptop, say, is 1200 or 1500 pixels, depending upon what size of that viewport you're using, whether it's, you know, a third of it or a fourth of it or half of it, we might say that image could be 600 pixels or 400 pixels or 300 pixels or 1200 pixels if it's going to take up the whole screen. So bring it down to that viewport as best you can. But then remember that some of this stuff may be accessed on a really large television. So we want to make sure that how people are digesting it may affect the image size. And sometimes those image sizes will need to be bigger, especially if people are typically accessing it on a desktop, you know, super large viewport. I still try to err on the side of very small images with the highest quality. There's a trade-off. The smaller the image, the less quality. The higher quality, the larger the image. So you want to find this balance where the opens really quickly, gives a beautiful look, also has that beautiful look, opens quickly. Those are the things we're looking for. There is a trade-off. You'll have to handle that yourself. So the buttons, we certainly want to pay attention to the different types of buttons. Whether it's call to action, whether it's a sign up and subscribe, whether it's get more information. The best thing is to try to keep, when you can, a certain type of button, a certain color. And we also like to try using the color wheel. So eyes are drawn on the color wheel. If we're a color over here, we might try to put the CTA in a color over here that's opposite. If you look at the color wheel that way. You also have to make sure it's in your brand guide. Like if you don't have an opposite color in the brand guide, we might try to put that accented color that's just kind of stands out against your brand as a certain CTA, and maybe get more as a little lighter, get more information as a little lighter color within that same brand. And then subscribe buttons. If you can keep those buttons consistent, people will get used to that button color. And we certainly don't want them to miss the CTAs, right? That's the whole point, is get people to digest more information, get more services, get more products from us. So buttons will help to draw attention. You'll pay attention to the success of them on different colors. And of course, the more eyes, the better. The more people you can ask about your button colors, your CTA colors, the better. Not every opinion is good. Some opinions are garbage, but at least if you can get a full understanding of some really good, solid branding opinions, that's really the opinions I'm talking about. And personalization, emails that use a personalized subject line, 20% more likely to be opened. Most automated email programs already have this AI component in where they're going to pull the name, last name, email, some information from the document and put it into that email. You certainly have to use that. Any automations that you can get that can kind of change or tweak some information, AI is super important with this. A lot of the softwares, the SaaSes you'll use, they already kind of include a lot of this, but that's why you're going to shop around. Super important to personalize it. Super important to personalize the journey. We want to put people in journeys. Like if you're a company that doesn't have a niche industry, then you really want information that's niched down to that industry. And certainly if you know what service they want, then you're going to niche that service into that industry. It's just a language change. We're going to repackage this thing for these industries so that people think, oh, they only service this industry, or we're only really feeding them information that shows that we're ready for you. We've got a good product or a good service for you. And that's how we'll personalize these things, from the content, from the headers to the whole journey. The key message, so they're more likely to follow through with whatever the CTA is if the copy is well-defined and personal. We want to personalize the information. We want to be concise. We don't want to ramble. We don't want to make it long just because. Concise is better. If I can say something in 3 words versus 1 word, I'm going to say it in 1 word. So don't be repetitive with emails. It's not a classroom lecture where you might repeat something 6-7 times. People can go back and reread the email. So really keep it use brevity when you can, and give them everything they need so that you're covering the whole topic or whatever you're trying to cover in that email. And people will appreciate this. They'll understand when I open this, I'm going to read everything that I need to, and look at it this way. Keep an email within scope. Whatever the scope is that email is, keep it in scope. If you start going down a rabbit trail that is not in scope, use a different email to talk about that. Get back in scope. If you need to talk about something for a sentence or two, as long as it stays within scope, you're good to go. when I start changing my scopes and I'm like, wow, what was the topic of this email? Don't do that. Stay in scope. And so that's email design. It's going to help with your open rates. It's going to help people not unsubscribe. And it's just going to be good practice in general. If you need to go back and listen to this module, go back now. If not, I'll see you in the next module.